While you weren't paying any attention, the price of the Chevy Cruze has plummeted on the used car market. No one wants a car in America anymore, so low mileage, nicely optioned Cruzes can be had for under $5,000. And that's good news for anyone in the market for a second car or for their first. This is a 2012 Chevy Cruze LT RS. GM introduced the Chevy Cruze in 2008 and was GM's global compact car replacement for the aging Cobalt in the United States. The car rode on the Delta II platform and in the US was fitted with a turbocharged 1.4-liter Ecotec i4 or a naturally aspirated 1.8-liter Ecotec i4. Both engines were available with a 6-speed automatic or 6-speed manual transmission. A diesel engine was briefly offered starting in 2014, but it was only fitted to an automatic transmission and it didn't sell well. A lot was riding on the Chevy Cruze. It was GM's first new compact vehicle post-bankruptcy, and its success was largely thought to be an indication of GM's ability to succeed post-bankruptcy. Luckily for GM, the Cruze was an overwhelming success. Up until 2016, GM sold over 200,000 Cruzes in the United States alone each year, and that number more than doubles when you consider the strong Chinese and Australian sales. If you Google second car, a picture of the Chevy Cruze should pop up first. It's inexpensive, it's reliable, you don't have to worry about beating it up, and it doesn't look half bad. It also makes a great first car. It's next to impossible for your teenager to get himself in trouble with the 1.4-liter turbo, or the 1.8-liter naturally aspirated engine at that. Acceleration isn't great, 0 to 60 is just under 10 seconds, but it's not slow to the point where it feels dangerous. It's easy to see why GM sold so many Chevy Cruzes after you drive one. This really is the ideal city car. It's small, it's compact, but it offers enough room to easily fit 4 adults in it if needed. Steering is light and there's little road feedback in the wheel. That's to be expected with a small front-wheel drive compact car like this. Braking's responsive with little fade, but it's nothing to write home about. The digital speedometer keeps up with your speed with almost no lag, and I think GM was going for a sport bike type feel with this gauge cluster. The cluster on the Chevy Sonic has a lot more of a sport bike vibe than this does, but it's pretty comparable. However, the display does look cheaply made, and it reminds me of this weird neon green LCD digital alarm clock that my dad had back in the mid-90s. When a car sells brand new in the low $20,000 range, sacrifices are going to be made. Do you like new car smell? Well, over 80,000 miles and nearly a decade later, the inside of this car still has a strong chemical smell and it won't dissipate. The best comparison I can give is to tanned leather and pencil shavings. I don't know what GM is using in their vehicles to create this smell, but it was present in the 2017 Z06 I reviewed. However, the smell was not present in the 2018 Silverado I reviewed. That truck had cloth seats, so I believe the smell is coming from a chemical one of GM's suppliers uses when tanning leather. And while we're on the leather used for the seats hasn't aged well and it's now very stiff. It feels almost as if it's stretched too tightly over the padding. And if you're over 200 pounds and over 6 foot, this car is not going to be comfortable for you. Although this is an automatic, I've driven a manual and the transmission and shifter are acceptable on the manual. I'd give it a solid C. You're not going to go home and post this one on the fridge, but you're not getting called down to the principal's office for a lack of effort. The automatic is serviceable. I give it a C-. Shifts are not crisp, and sometimes it struggles to find the right gear when downshifting. A big selling point of this car for Chevy was its economy. It was the late aughts and early 2010s, and gas prices were sky high. But with a 1.4-liter and a 6-speed auto, this car is only getting 22 gallons combined in the real world. Now that's not terrible, but nowadays we have full-size trucks getting the same gas mileage. I'm not sure why there was such a large discrepancy between the automatic and the manual, but the Eco had low resistance tires and aerodynamic wheels, an air shutter that closes at certain speeds, and it had no spare tire to reduce weight. Plus the Eco had a cold air intake and a tune. The engine in the LTZ is a turbocharged inline-4 that's making 138 horsepower and 148 pound-feet of torque at only 1850 RPM. But don't plan on making any more power with this engine. The 1.4-liter is just too damn small to really do anything with. Engine makes an aftermarket intake, and yes, you can get all the normal bolt-ons you'd expect, but even with those bolt-ons, you're only looking at around 150 wheel horsepower max. ZZP out of Michigan does make a bigger turbo for the 1.4 liter, but with that you're only looking at a gain of 30 horsepower and 50 pound-feet of torque at the wheels. If you want this as your first car because it's cheap and you want something to work on and get into modifying cars, this isn't the car for you. Look for a used Focus ST or Fiesta ST or even a Focus SVT. You'll be a lot happier. And one more thing about this engine. The 1.4 liter seems to be quick to go into limp mode. This car has gone into limp mode for the owner because of a defective throttle body, the car running slightly hot, and lack of traction in a snowstorm for a prolonged period. The LTZ in this video has also been overheating because of a failing water pump, and that's already led to $1,500 in repairs for the owner. But overall, the Chevy Cruze is a reliable car, so don't let those issues scare you away from buying one. She'll serve you well as a daily beater or as your kid's first car. Just don't plan on getting much more out of her.